Film Club.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Film Club. I'm one of your hosts, Andy Harrison, and with me, as always, it's Andy Donaldson.
Hello.
Every week in Film Club, we invite you along to watch a film with us, and this week, we're taking a look at Lost in Translation.
Two souls, two people who are in a hotel in Japan for different means, two different ages, but they both find themselves at the same point in their life where they're wondering what the hell they're doing. So this is Sofia Coppola, and it's not her debut, but it's the one that she's most known for, film. And it's my first time watching this, and this is one that you really, really love, isn't it?
For a long time, I've considered it one of my favourite films, and whether or not as the years have ticked by that remains true, we'll see one day if we ever actually get pen to paper and decide to do a top 10 favourite films list or something. Yeah. But your first time through, Andy, what do you think?
I really enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. It's a weird one because I see Bill Murray in. As much as I love Bill Murray, Bill Murray's, he's always got that kind of egotistical nature about him. He looked like Groundhog Day, look at Ghostbusters, and a few others that he's been in. I'm not saying he's all that in every film, but I came in and obviously Bill Murray was acting kind of himself, but then it kind of drew more into him as a character. He's a bit more reserved. He's got his own wants and needs, and it's kind of like almost like a side of Bill Murray I've never seen before.
Do I need to worry about you, Bob?
Only if you want to.
Bob, I got things to do. I gotta go.
Okay.
I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
But like Scarlett Johansson nowadays is like a prominent woman in the industry. You know, she's there. She's an icon of the industry. Whereas back here, we're seeing her really, really rein back and reserved. And again, that was really lovely to see. I think she was 17 when she was casting this. And we just have someone who trains with Bill Murray, who, you know, like the actual film shows, you know, a young kind of naive but intelligent person with this kind of powerhouse of an actor who is kind of like, you know, where am I at in my life?
It's really great. I don't know, I went to this shrine today, and there were these monks, and they were chanting, and I didn't feel anything, you know, and I don't know, I even tried Ikebana, and John is using these hair products. I don't know who I married.
Can you wait a second? Just hold on, I'll be right back.
Okay, sure.
It's weird, you know. It says it's a rom-com. It's a weird take on a rom-com, not a bad one.
Yeah, I've never liked the label rom-com for this. It definitely has elements of romance. It definitely has elements of comedy, but I don't really consider it a rom-com. Sofia Coppola at the time, it wasn't her, like you said, it wasn't her debut film. She'd already cut her teeth on the Virgin Suicides, I think it's called.
That's the one.
That's her debut film. But I think Lost in Translation is probably the most intimate and most personal film that she's ever made. It is so clearly based on some of her own experiences. Like in the past, she has sort of denied some of the clear connections. But sort of post-university, she spent a lot of time in Tokyo. She spent a lot of time sort of exploring that city, trying to find herself, not quite sure what she wanted to do, trying a bit of fashion, trying a bit of photography, and not really understanding what she wanted to make a career out of until obviously eventually going back and finding that she did actually want to try film as a career. Thankfully, because I think this is a wonderful, wonderful film. And during that period, she was also married to Spike Jonze.
Yeah. Forget about that.
By the time Lost in Translation came out, he had already done like Being John Malkovich, and
oh really?
He'd already done Adaptation. Infamously, they had quite a strained relationship at the time. Like the parallel between her, Sofia Coppola, and Scarlett Johansson's character is very, very clear. And I think that the parallel between Spike Jonze being this successful creative, often about having to travel the world and having to leave her behind in some cases. I think that's clearly John. You know, it's her husband in this film. And I think that embracing that honesty and embracing that earnestness and embracing that personal story comes through in every single facet of this film. I think that the way in which he not only integrates these characters into Tokyo, but also makes them feel completely separate. One of the most impressive things to me is this like visual constant reminder that these people don't quite fit and aren't quite integrated into this world. Like, you get a really lovely example early on of Bill Murray in the lift, where he sort of towers over everybody.
Yeah, maybe laugh at.
But you also get way more subtle and way more sort of like enriched examples of it with Scarlett Johansson, like sort of like staring out the window where she's she's hundreds of feet in the air staring out over the city of Tokyo.
It's almost like a dreamy landscape, isn't it? Dreamy atmospheric
definitely
kind of exterior.
Dreamy's perfect for this film because, like, both these characters are sort of jet lagged, they can't sleep, they're sort of they've got these restless nights, and the whole film just sort of bleeds together. I love that, like, we frequently cut into these guys just hanging out or just going about their day and doing something, and there's no clear divide about, like, the days passing by. There's even a question around, like, how much time has actually passed, because, like, Bill Murray seems like he's not that far away from going home, and then suddenly days roll by where he's still staying in Tokyo. And I love that blending. It's got a very sort of explorative style to the filmmaking.
And to complement that dreamy atmospheric tone that the film tries to convey is through the music. I read that Sofia Coppola was mates with Brian Wrightsell. He kind of compiled this collection of music. There's a couple of original tracks as well. Together of bands from, like, bands that I listen to, like Phoenix and a French band called AHAI, and they made this song called Alone in Kyoto, which is, I really enjoyed the song, and it's someone I listen to often. It's actually been one of the main influences of me trying to rewatch Lost in Translation, because I was like, how did these end? It turns out they use it amazingly well. I like a lot of instrumental kind of music, and a lot of mine is, especially in the past, is these kind of like ethereal kind of atmospheric music that they have in this film, as well as a few others. You have like your rocky stuff, especially with the karaoke scenes. They were brilliant. And it kind of complements this whole kind of take that they're trying to create really well. And it's like those moments where, as you said, Scarlett Johansson's looking through the window, and you have this lovely soundscape. It all collates together to make this wonderful experience. It's one of the things I really enjoyed about the film. What it brought out in me is this kind of like those moments in life that you happen chance, that comes out of nowhere. I remember once I took a 6-hour bus to London. I don't know if anyone else has ever done that kind of journey. It's bloody long. You don't really look forward to it. And what happened in that is I met this lovely, like, old fella from not far from me, and we had this 5-6 hour conversation about his days, in the war. Then he became a postmaster. I told him about my life, and I came out of that experience thinking that was one of the best journeys of my life, because I got to experience this wonderful story from a wonderful human being. And this film really, if anything, it brought that memory back, and it was quite emotional to have that kind of, like I said, these random scenarios where you remember the finer details of these amazing people that you meet. Yeah,
definitely. I think that's one of my favorite things about the fact this relationship isn't just like purely romantic. It's not just purely sexualized. Clearly in this particular case, there's a leaning in that direction, but the film never goes whole hog, and it never dedicates to that, because it wants people to find a little bit of their own stories in there. Because you know what? You're right. We all have these sort of little experiences in which we spend a day with somebody who we didn't expect to spend a day with somebody. And it might be someone you never ever see again, but that day means a lot because it came out of nowhere. And whether that's you here falling in love with somebody you didn't expect to in Tokyo, or whether it's you falling in love with somebody on a bus to London because he's a postman.
Poetic.
And I think that, credit to her, I think she totally achieves it. I definitely want to mention Lance Accord, because Lance Accord is the cinematographer for this film. This film is just downright beautiful. It's so incredibly naturalistic. It's got this great eye for street photography. It's got this great eye for very striking framing at the same time. And one thing that's definitely worth mentioning is apparently at one point, Francis Ford Coppola, Sofia Coppola's dad, he tried to get them to shoot this film on HD video, which at the time was obviously getting very, very popular. He was like, it's the future. You have to go and shoot on this. You've got to shoot in HD digital. And Sofia Coppola rightfully said, no, we're shooting on film because that's more romantic.
Okay. Well, I heard that quite interesting film experience where it's a bit more very, very small crew and kind of a lot of it was improvised, whether it was the script itself or whether it was like the kind of scenes. And you know, we talked about films in the past, such as Monsters, where they run with a small crew and they use kind of people, just public people as extras, which is quite fascinating, really. They managed to do it in the crowded streets of Tokyo.
Definitely. You could only get away with that in Tokyo since you've got, Bill Murray with you, which, obviously very well documented at this point, but the performances are great. And that's partly because even from the very beginning, she knew she wanted Bill Murray for this. This role was written for Bill Murray.
It makes sense.
Although Scarlett Johansson obviously had a career prior to this and went on to have a career completely disconnected of Sofia Coppola, for me, this is still absolutely her best performance. I think that it's the subtlest performance she's ever given.
I think this and her.
Which, Spike Jonze, Sofia Coppola, you can't get away from the similarities in terms of their visual styles, some of their casting styles. And do you know what? Even, we mentioned Lance Accord earlier, he shot a bunch of Spike Jonze's films.
There we go.
Anyway,
Wow.
Lost in Translation. I know for me it came along at absolutely the right moment. It's a film I hold very, very near and dear. I think it's incredible in terms of performances. I think that it's a beautiful looking film. I think that it's gorgeous on the ears as well. And I hope that as the years tick by, I can revisit this and continue to get something slightly different from it every time.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to my next rewatch.
So anyway, there is Lost in Translation. You can let us know in the comments below what you thought of Lost in Translation. But Andy and I are going to be back next week, where it's time to take a look at Kubo and the Two Strings.
Cheers, guys.
Until then, get watching.